Hello everyone. Hope you are having a good day. I thought I would come on and make a box and some matching cards to go in that gift box. Today we're going to be using the Wonderful World Celebration stamp set. And you will find that in the Stampin' Up! Celebration brochure for July and August of 2022. And you can get this stamp set and the matching designer series paper free with a $100 purchase. My name is Teresa Harper, and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Sheridan, Oregon. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you like my video, please subscribe and click that notification button, and then give me a thumbs up if you like what you see. All right, let's go ahead and get started. This is the Wonderful World stamp set. It is a distinctive stamp set, which means that it gives incredible depth into your images when you stamp them. This is the designer series paper. As you can see, I don't have a lot left. So you get 6 double-sided designs, and you get 2 each of those in the packet. So here's what you will get for the patterns. Okay, so we've got those. And then here's the back side of this one. And finally, we've got this beautiful piece and the back side of it. We're going to go and ahead and get started with the box today. And for the box pieces, you're going to need a piece of basic white cardstock. And this one, it just needs to be big enough to stamp your flower on. This one happens to be about 2 3/8 by 3 1/8. Then you'll need a scrap piece of Blackberry Bliss, and this we'll be cutting an oval out of this using the Fabulous Frames dies. And these are those. You can find these in the 2022-23 Stampin' Up! Annual Catalog in the back of the catalog with the dies. These are standalone dies and do not come in a bundle. So we've got that piece. Then we need a piece of Orchid Oasis cardstock, and this is a 1/4 sheet of cardstock that I have cut, again, using those Fabulous Frames. And when you cut this frame die, it cuts out the frame, and then you have this extra piece of cardstock that you can use on another project. So I've pre-done that to save us some time. Then you'll need a piece of the designer series paper. And this is cut at 4 5/8 by 5 7/8. Then we've got 2 pieces of Blackberry Bliss cardstock. And these are cut. The smaller piece is the box top. And this is 6 13/16 by 8 1/16. So basically what you're going to do is take your cardstock. I usually take it on the 11-inch side and go to 6 3/4 inches, and then move up to the next tick mark, which will be the 16th inch, and that will put you at 6 13/16 inches. And then on the 8 1/2 inch side, slide it in and cut at 1 tick mark above 8 inches, and that will give you the 8 1/16. Okay, so for the box bottom, this piece of Blackberry Bliss is cut at 8 1/2, so you don't need to cut that. Then just cut on the 11 1/2 inch, or the 11-inch side at 7 1/4, and then you'll have your piece for your box bottom. And you'll have some leftover pieces that you can use on other projects. Let's go ahead and get our scoring done. So I prefer my Simply Scored tool. So we're going to grab that out. And I'm going to start with the larger piece on the 8 1/2 inch side. It doesn't really matter what side you start on. Just make sure that you have your larger piece. And then we're going to score this at 1 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. So 1 1/4, 1 1/4, 1 1/4, and 1 1/4. Okay, then we can set that piece aside. We're going to grab the smaller piece of Blackberry Bliss, and we're going to score this at 1 inch all the way around, all 4 sides. 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch. Okay, and that's all of the scoring that we need to do. So now we're going to take and burnish all of our score lines. So I'm going to fold those over and burnish them with our bone folder. We need some nice crisp lines in order to make a nice box. And we'll do that with both of our pieces. Okay. All right, then we're going to take our paper snips, and I like to do this on the short sides, and we're going to do the same thing on both pieces. I like to cut to the inside of the square here at the score line, so I'm going to cut straight up there. Then I'm going to angle cut this. And the reason that we angle cut this is so that we don't have cardstock hanging out of the box. Now I'm moving to the inside of the opposite side of the score line. And then I'm going to wedge that out as well on both pieces of the square. And then I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. And again, I'm going to cut to the inside of that score line, right along the score line. And then we're going to trim out those edges. And again, I'm moving to the inside of the score line and wedging. Okay, so when we get done, we have a piece that looks like this. All right. And then we're going to set that aside, and we're going to do the same thing with our box top. So again, I'm cutting to the inside of that score line and then wedging out, moving to the opposite side to the inside of the score line. And I'll wedge those pieces out, flipping it 180 degrees and cutting to the inside of that score line and wedging that out. And then I'm going to move to the opposite side and repeat one last time. Okay. So we've got all that done. Now we can take some tear and tape. You could use liquid glue here, but I prefer the tear and tape. And I'm just going to lay this here right next to the score line, right up next to it. I don't want to go over it, but right up next to it so that when I put this together, I have a nice tight corner. And I'm going to do this to all 4 of my tabs, making sure that I put that right up next to the score line. The front tab is not nearly as important, the front of the tab, as it is to get that right up to the score line to ensure that your box holds together and doesn't gape at the corners. So again, we're putting that right up to the score line. I like to use my ruler to tear my tear and tape and get a nice clean edge. Okay, so we've got that one done. Now we'll repeat that on the box bottom. Till we get this all the way around. And these boxes really are rather easy to put together. The hardest part is making sure that you measure properly. And when you're making a box, you always want to make sure that your box lid is about a 1/16 of an inch larger than the box bottom, so that it will fit right over the top and you don't have to force the box to go together. Now I have put these measurements so that they're just a bit larger in both width and length of the envelopes, so that the cards and envelopes will fit easily in. Now I'm taking my bone folder and I am burnishing down the tear and tape so that it will come up easier. And then I'm going to remove all of the backing papers from this double-sided adhesive. And if I get a little bit over like I did here, I just take this and fold it back on itself. Just to keep everything neat and tidy and keep the adhesive exactly where I want it. And I'm using my Take Your Pick tool to get that backing paper off, because that assists me in a lot of different jobs. And you can get this in the online store. The Take Your Pick tool is only about $10. So, and it comes with a putty tip. It comes with this pokey tool tip. It has little spatula tip, and then it also comes with a two different sizes of stylus that you can add into there. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to take our cut edge and put it right up to the score line on our box here. Then we're going to move to the next side and we're going to do the same thing. Cut edge nice and tight up to the score line. Those will give you clean, nice looking corners. And the way the box is designed, you'll still be able to get your lid in easily. Okay, so once I get all 4 of those done, then I will take my bone folder and burnish those down. Okay, so there's my box bottom. And now we'll bring in the box lid. And again, we're going to burnish those tear and tapes just to make that a lot easier for us. We'll just lift out those backing papers. Okay, and we're almost done with this, and then we can start decorating our box. Okay, now you could decorate your box while it's flat, and it actually is easier to do. But if you want to make sure that all of your dimensions are correct before you do all of that, go ahead and put your box together. And again, we're just putting those cut edges up to the score line for a nice tight corner. Okay, and then we'll burnish those down. Okay, and we'll bring back in that box bottom, and then you can see that that box lid fits snugly over that box bottom. All right, let's go ahead and decorate this up. Now we're going to start with a piece of the Designer Series paper. And I've again cut this piece of the Wonderful World Designer Series paper at 4 5/8 by 5 7/8. So I'm just going to add that to my box top with a little bit of Stampin' Seal. Okay. And we'll just center that up as best we can. Give that a nice press there. Okay. And then we're going to add this piece of the Orchid Oasis that we cut with the Fabulous Frames dies. Again. And I got these colors from the Designer Series paper. So we're just going to put a little bit of liquid glue along here. And remember, with Tombow glue, a little bit goes a long way. And then I'm going to grab my tweezers because that's how I like to get my hand out of the way so I can see better. All right, and then we'll center that up. Give that a press. All right, and now we're ready for our stamping. So let's take a piece of the basic white, and I'm going to grab my Stamparatus. Okay, we'll put this in here, and then we're going to get some Melon Mambo and Pear Pizzazz ink. So I'm going to start with Pear Pizzazz. I'm going to stick something under my plate here just to hold that even for inking. And then we're going to take a sponge dauber in the Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to put this in my basic white in my thing, and I'm going to take my Pear Pizzazz and I'm going to ink up the stems of my flower here. And this is the iris from the Wonderful World. And then I'm going to take Melon Mambo. Okay. And I'm going to ink up my iris with the Melon Mambo and the sponge dauber. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a press. Okay. And there's the image that we'll be putting on the top of our thing. Now, I'm going to take, while I'm here, I've got a piece of basic white that is 3 5/8 by 4 7/8, and this will be for the inside of one of the cards. And I've already pre-measured where I need to put this so that I can stamp this. And I'm, without re-inking now, I'm just going to give this a breath of life. And re-moisten it just a little bit, and then I'm going to stamp that on my paper for the inside of my card. And that's what we call second generation. Okay, so it gives me just a light image that I'll be able to stamp over the top of, but yet the inside of my card will be pretty. Okay. So let's go ahead and move those out of the way. And then I'm going to bring in my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And I'm going to take my base plate and plate 2. And I'm going to get the oval from the Fabulous Frames dies. And I'm going to put this around my image here. And then I'm going to run this through my machine. And that's going to give me this beautiful flower cut with the oval. It also cuts out a frame at the same time, but we don't need this piece, so we're going to set that aside. And we're going to set our flower aside, and one more time with that scrap of Blackberry Bliss that we have, we're going to run this through our machine because we want the frame cut in Blackberry Bliss. So I'm going to run that through, and then that will take care of our die cutting. All right. So we've got that. I'll put that frame away before we lose it. And now I'm going to take my frame here, and I'm going to get some Stampin' Dimensionals. And I'm going to flip my frame over upside down and my flower. And then I'm going to set that in the frame. And because it only fits in the frame the proper direction, I don't need to worry about whether my flower will be straight or not. So then I can just take and put some Stampin' Dimensionals to put those two pieces together. So, and then I'm going to put an extra one up here, and I want to leave the center part of that open so I can put some ribbon on my box. So we've got that. We're going to bring back in the box. I'm going to remove those backing papers from the Stampin' Dimensionals, and we'll place this in the center. Okay. And then we're going to get some brushed brass butterflies. And we're going to take our Take Your Pick tool. And these brass butterflies you can find in the annual Stampin' Up! Catalog. And I'm going to put one large one down here. And then I'm going to put another mini one over here. And we'll grab one last large one and put it up here. Okay. Now, we can set this aside for just a moment, and we'll make our card. We're going to make one of the cards that go in here. The rest of the cards I already have together, and I've done quite a bit of the work of this. So I stamped the iris in the same manner on a piece of 2 3/8 by 3 1/8 piece of basic white in the Melon Mambo and the Pear Pizzazz. Taken a piece of Blackberry Bliss, and this is 2.5 by 3 1/4 inches. And I'm going to add these two pieces together. Okay. And then we're going to take our basic card base here, and I'm going to fold that in half. Okay. And next we need a piece of basic white. I'm going to cut that at 4 by 5 1/4. And then we're going to grab our large Stampin' and cut and emboss machine. and our pretty flowers embossing folder. And we're going to emboss this. Okay, so let's grab our machine. Oops, my plates just crashed on the floor. Sorry about that. Okay, so we need base plate 1. This is not a 3D embossing folder. So we need base plate 1, and then an acrylic pad, the pretty flowers embossing folder. We're going to put that in, and I like to line it up with the black line that Stampin' Up! Has put in there for us. I'm going to put that at just a slight bit of an angle, and then I'm going to put another plate, acrylic plate on the top. Okay, and then we can set all of that aside. And we'll have the pieces that we need. Okay, so we've got that, and even though this isn't a 3D embossing folder, you can really see the detail on that. Okay, so now we're going to take our piece of Designer Series paper from That Wonderful World, and this is cut at 4 inches by 2 inches. And I'm going to use liquid glue because I like to use liquid glue when I'm adhering to an embossed surface. I think it holds better. The glue can squish into all of those nooks and crannies. And I'm going to put this just below half. And line that up with the edges. And press that in place. Then I'm going to turn it over and use my bone folder just to squish that glue where it needs to go. Now, if you have anything hanging over at this point, you could cut that off, but we're good. And next, we're going to add this to our base of Blackberry Bliss. And again, that is 5.5 by 8.5, scored in the center at 4 1/4, using that liquid glue. I'm going to pop that down. Okay. And then we're going to get our Stampin' Dimensionals again. And we're going to bring back in our flower piece. And we're going to raise this up and give it a little bit of dimension by adding some Stampin' Dimensionals. I don't know about you, but I do not like saggy middles. So I probably use more dimensionals than is required. But I'm going to do it so my cards don't get trashed in the mail. And I'm just using my Tick Your Pick tool to grab those pieces off of there. And again, I'm going to bring in my now you can put this wherever you wish, and if you're making multiple cards, I would vary them in different spots. So I'm going to put this one just off to the right here. And then, where did I set those brush brass butterflies? Right here. We're going to bring those back in. But first we need to cut a piece of basic white, and we're going to cut that at 5/8. And we want this to be 2 3/8. So 2 1/4, and then we'll go to the next longest line and make that 2 3/8. And we're going to take our Blackberry Bliss ink. And I'm taking a stamp from the stamp set that is called Inspired Thoughts. Where did I set that stamp set? Oh, here it is, right here. I buried it underneath my cutting plates. So this is Inspired Thoughts, and this particular stamp set you will find on page 77 of the 2022-23 annual catalog. I really like this stamp set because it has both inside and outside sentiments, and it covers a large variety of occasions that you would need to make cards for. So if you were to pair this with the Wonderful World like I have, you can make all kinds of different occasions cards. So we're going to do the With Heartfelt Sympathy. And I'm just going to place this down here and line it up. And now we've got our sentiment for the front. And while we have our ink out for this, I'm going to take another sentiment, thinking of you on your special day. But I don't want to say thinking of you on your special day for heartfelt sympathy. So I'm going to take a piece of Post-it tape. You could use Scotch tape or a Post-it note. And I'm going to mask this off with the Post-it tape. And I'm just going to press that down and cover up what I don't want. And then I'm going to bring this back in and I'm going to ink it up. And I'm going to pull my Post-it tape. That is the most important piece. Pull your Post-it tape. And then when you go to stamp this down, you will have only the piece of the sentiment that you wish. Okay? All right, so we've got that done, and this is ready for the inside of our card. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of Stampin' Seal and place that on the inside. And then with Stampin' Seal, I'm going to take my With Heartfelt Sympathy. And I'm going to place this down here along the bottom, about 1/8 of an inch up. And now I've taken some white crinkled seam binding ribbon, and this is the very last bit of my amount, and you're going to need about 10 inches. Not sure that this piece is really quite big enough, but I wanted to show you that I didn't have any Melon Mambo ribbon that I wanted to use. So I'm going to take my Melon Mambo Light Stampin' Blend. I'm going to take the brush tip and I'm going to color my ribbon. Okay, now you would probably want to do this ahead of time so that this will dry. It doesn't take very long. Okay, we're going to set that aside because I have already colored my ribbon and have it dried and ready to go. So now I'm going to take my bone folder because that makes that just a little bit stiff. And I've got a bow jig here. And I'm going to wrap this double. And I'm going to take under, and then I'm going to go through the, whoops. I'm going to go over and under. And then I'm going to crisscross those and tuck the right through the left. Put that into the center of my bow. I want to make sure I get that in the center before I pull it taut. And then when I pull it up, I want to separate my loops so that you can definitely tell I've got two. Okay. Then I'm going to take a glue dot. Stick that down. And then grab my Take Your Pick tool. And I'm just going to set that right there and give it a press. And then I'll trim up my ends. And the final step is to take one of the large brass butterflies, and I'm going to put that right down here at the end of the heartfelt sympathy. And there is our card. So for the front of my envelope now, I'm going to take and grab the Stamparatus again, because I believe in no naked envelopes. So we're going to get that Stamparatus back in here. And I'm going to pull off this plate, because with the Stamparatus, the plates, if you pull them at 90-degree angle, you can pull one plate off and put another plate on just by holding it at the 90-degree angle, and the Stamparatus comes with 2 plates. So again, I'm going to grab this out, and I'm going to take my Blackberry Bliss ink again. And I've already placed this. I'm going to put my envelope in to my Stamparatus in the corner. And when I place this, I'm not going to have the bottom, so I don't need to worry so much about inking that very bottom. But I am going to need the Pear Pizzazz for the stems in the center. So I'm going to go ahead, and I just stuck my thumb in the Pear Pizzazz. And I'm going to ink up these little bits here. Let's make sure you can see what I'm doing. And then I just need to ink the tops of these. I don't need to worry so much about the bottom. Then I'm going to grab that rich raspberry. Or the Blackberry Bliss. Sorry, I need a Blackberry Bliss ink spot, sponge dauber here. Let me find that really quick. Where is that going to be? The shaded spur right here. Blackberry Bliss. Sorry, I should have already had that out. So we've got that sponge dauber, and then I'm just going to take that Blackberry Bliss, daub that on. And this is such an easy way to add 2 colors or multiple colors to your stamps without going through a lot of trouble. Okay, so then we've got those ready to go. A little bit more right there in the center. And then we're going to press this down. And when we lift it up, we have this beautiful image for our envelope. Okay. Now you could also take a piece of the designer series paper, 2 1/4 by 6 inches, and add it to the envelope flap. So let's go ahead and see what we've got left for pieces. This one will work perfectly. This is one of the pieces in that designer series paper. Okay, so for this, yep, this is right at the 2 1/4 inch. We're going to take some liquid glue and we're going to just run it along the flap of that envelope, the top, staying inside. And then I'm just going to give it a little bit on the very inside. Then we're going to take our designer series paper, press that into place, pull that up, and again I like to take my bone folder and get that glue spread out. And then I'll take my paper snips, and either side of that designer series paper would work beautifully on the flaps. And everything coordinates, so we don't have to worry about that either. Okay, so here's what we have. Let me move some of these things out of the way. We've got our card, okay, and then we've got our box. Now I'll go ahead and show you the rest of the cards that I have made to go along with this, because this box will fit 6 cards. Okay, so we've got those. And then we've got a thinking of you on your special day, and that's how I've done the envelope for that. And we've got sending healing thoughts your way. And I've got a couple of those. And then we've got some more heartfelt sympathies. And I did these in Pear Pizzazz and Orchid Oasis. All right. So that is our project for today. Hope you like that. Thank you for joining me. And again, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.